Welcome to the Enterprise Excellence Podcast, where our purpose is to help create a better future. Learn from our world's experts how to improve your organisation sustainably. Learn how to achieve and sustain an excellence journey for yourself, others, and the planet.
And I'm your host, Brad Jevons, coming to you from Brisbane, Australia. We are proudly brought to you in association with SA Partners, a world-leading business transformation consultancy. SA Partners are a truly purposeful company focused on helping organisations achieve sustainable improvement for themselves, others, and the planet.
Hey everyone. Today I got on the show a good friend of mine, Kelvin Williams. I've been on his podcast, Improver. Kelvin does great things out there around business improvement, wrote the book Fit. The show today, we're talking a lot about strategy and how to really get focus in an organisation and then bring it to life and make it happen. It's a great episode, so important to continuous improvement, so important to navigating these times ahead. We've put a free download up on the Enterprise Excellence Podcast in the download section on a process of creating a meaningful vision and a team vision with that. So it goes into sort of the strategy deployment piece too. If you want to get hold of it, go to the website. Let's get into the episode. Welcome to episode 147 of the Enterprise Excellence Podcast. It is such a pleasure to have Mr. Kelvin Williams on the show with us today. Kelvin is the author of Fit, The Simple Science of Achieving Strategic Goals. Kelvin is the host of the Impruver Podcast, which captures the stories of the pioneers of lean, TPM, and continuous improvement. I'm looking forward to today's conversation on achieving strategic goals. Kelvin, thanks so much for joining us today, mate.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, really appreciate it, mate. Such an important topic, like especially in today's world where things are changing and evolving so much. Strategy is so important. But, mate, what led you to write the book Fit? What were you seeing? Where did you see the need to get that book out there?
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of things. You know, in my most recent corporate experience, I was working with a company called Clorox, and they I was in charge of strategy for the organization, and it's a 36 factory company at the time. This was about 5 years ago. I was also in charge of OpEx, continuous improvement, TPM, and those things. But you know, really kind of honed in on focusing on strategy. And I had been involved with strategy for several companies before that: Mars, A.T. Kearney, Colgate, you know, Tyson, Nestle, etc. But I was more on the side of, hey, Calvin, set your annual goals, and then after a year, we'll come back and see what you got done. Sometimes, right? Not even, I wouldn't say they were that great about consistently following up and driving execution either. But, you know, I think I personally took I took it seriously, and I worked hard to achieve the goals that I'd set at the beginning of the year. So. But at Clorox, I was in charge of strategy, and I was helping to drive the strategic goals of a whole 36 factory network, you know, cascading from the corporate executives, and realized that, you know, the company as a whole wasn't that great at executing strategy. And it wasn't just them, it was every company, right? It's a phenomenon, right? Where, you know, companies get swallowed up in the business of the day and lose sight of those long-term objectives. And seeing that time after time after time after time again, said, you know, that's probably an easier, more effective way to do this. Sat down, put together a lifelong experience of ideas, and then wrote the book Fit, which is a great book. And I'll tell you, we can dive more into the contents of that, but it also sort of juxtaposes against lean in a way. In a way, I think it's supportive of lean, but it also shows something that lean may have lost over the decades. So, yeah.
Well, Gavin, I think it's a top book you wrote, mate, because to me, getting continuous improvement happening, such a key part of it is having people have aspirational goals and meaning to what they're chasing, you know, and how do you get that without strategy deployment? How do you get alignment on that without strategy and strategy deployment?
That's a great point. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's a great, and I think Toyota understands this, because Toyota starts with Hoshin Connery, right? To say, hey, collectively, what are we trying to do? When it comes to continuous improvement, there's sort of an epidemic of random improvement, what I call random improvement, where it's like, hey, here's a tool, go do the best you can with this tool, right? And it doesn't have a direction. It's like if you're on a mission to increase throughput because you got so much sales that you just need to increase your throughput to capture these sales, what you don't want to do is run out and start cutting costs and cutting out labor, because you may need those people to help you achieve the throughput numbers, increase your sales. So if your top line number is exploding, you're not so worried about cutting the bottom line, right? So just having a strategy, a signal from the C-suite that says, this is the direction we're going, this is the mountain we're trying to conquer next, sets up everything else that comes afterward, right? And then it gives continuous improvement, which is a great, amazing toolbox of techniques you can use to drive that improvement. It gives that some direction for, all right, what projects, what activities are we going to prioritize so we can conquer that mountain over there, right?
Yeah, when I was chatting to a bloke yesterday from Boeing, and we're having a conversation, doing a podcast too, actually. And, you know, you talk about the lean toolkit, and it's like there's a bunch of hammers and different tools in there, isn't it? But it's like, well, right. what nail or screw do you need to hit or drill in? You know, so pull out then the right lean tool to hit that baby. But if you don't have that meaningful goal and direction and that strategic focus, like, well, you just rolling out the one tool for the sake of the tool, and it's like, do you really? Is it your problem? Do you really need to use it? Like,
and everything's a nail, right?
Yeah,
you know, everything's a nail. It's like, oh, let's use this tool again, right? Yeah. It's like if you need a screwdriver, you probably don't want to use a hammer.
No, I know. I think you're on a great one with it, mate. So, what are the key elements in the book, Fit, and that you help people with in this regard to strategy and then strategy deployment, Kelvin?
Yeah. So FIT is both a acronym and an adjective, right? And I'll talk the acronym side first. Very simple. FIT stands for focus, iterate, and track your progress along the way. So very simple. It's kind of an iteration on PDCA or some of the other sort of iterative approaches. You know, Agile, Scrum sort of applies similar concept. And all it means is to, you know, focus on what's most important to improve, iterate your way there, don't quit, don't get distracted, stay focused, and then track your progress along the way so you know you're going the right way, right? So pretty simple. Fit as an adjective, though, means to become what you need to become in order to achieve your goal. So whatever it is that you decide to focus on, you're probably not fit or not capable of achieving it already. Because if you are, it's not much of a goal. Mm-hmm. So the intent is to, hey, we're going to win the Super Bowl. At the beginning of the season, you're not fit to win the Super Bowl. It's through the process of iteration and improvement and trial and error and the trials of a whole season and playoffs and all that you become fit to win the Super Bowl. So it's almost in the book we use the narrative of the 1960s moonshot, where JF Kennedy said, hey, we're going to send a man to the moon and back by 1970, within the decade. And just in setting sights so high, a lot of people thought that was like ridiculous. Like, how could we possibly do that? We're not ready. We don't have the money. We don't have the time. We don't have the technology. We don't have the science to do that. But just in setting that North Star, you know, I think JFK set in motion a chain of events that led to us developing the engineering and the science and the technology and the capability to achieve that goal, right? And I think I saw something like 400, almost 500,000 engineers worked on the NASA project to achieve such an enormous feat. And I believe NASA was created as part of that effort as well back in the 1960s. So, and look where it's got us today, right? We have technologies that exist today, satellite communication technologies, GPS, like so many different things that we now use, the common man use daily, is a result of that enormously focused and concentrated and resourced and politically supported effort to achieve that. And why can't Nestle end world hunger? It's a food company, right? Yeah. You're in the hunger business. Why are there still hungry people on the planet, right? Nestle probably has the resources and tools to do that, right? I'm not picking on Nestle. I could pick on any company, right? And say, hey, pick a big problem. What's your moonshot, right? Get clear on what it is that you're going to do. What impact are you going to make? Like Steve Jobs said, hey, we're going to put a dent in the universe. Like, let's put some definition around that dent, and let's pull our resources together and make it happen.
Yeah, that's neat. So it sounds to me like, that moonshot gives you that focus, but it's got to be, I guess there's got to be meaning to it, is what you're saying. There's got to be some sort of purpose to it. Like there was a lot of purpose happening around that moonshot, wasn't there? But the moonshot was really clear. And then also, I guess Jobs was a legend at it, wasn't he? With his being clear of what the Apple's about and what their meaning is behind it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, the most powerful thing about the moonshot not only is the imagery, right? You can envision it, like, even before they had done it, you can kind of envision it.
Yeah.
But every 2-year-old, 3-year-old on the planet, you didn't need to be, a high scholar or very educated person or even an adult to understand. We're gonna put somebody on that big shiny rock up there, right? Yeah. You see that? We got a man going there and coming back, right? Any 3-year-old can understand that and buy into that and aspire to that and say, okay, that sounds amazing. What can I do to help, right?
Yeah.
And when you got that level of, engagement, you got the recipe for something amazing.
Yeah. I remember an article, and I don't know who wrote it or who was involved a while ago, but I remember someone was walking the aisle of NASA back in the mid-60s, early 60s, mid-60s, and ran across a cleaner and said, how's your day going? What do you do here? And the cleaner said, I keep this place clean so that I can keep people healthy and everything working so we can put a person on the moon, and like
that's it, right?
That is strategy deployment. But
that's it. That's the epitome, right?
Yeah.
It's like when the janitor, right, at NASA clearly understands what the organization is trying to do in their unique role and making it happen, and they understand that they cannot fail in the effort to achieve that goal because even their job is critically important for the organization's success. Then you got something. I read a statistic, I think it's from Cambridge University or some pretty reputable source, that said 86% of people in companies have no clue what their company strategy is. No clue. 86%. It's like that's 9 out of 10 people just about are working aimlessly. They're taking direction from their boss, and the boss maybe have some element of strategy woven into what they're asking for and, the expectations of the job. But, if you ask people why they do what they do and what to what ends, it's just like, just trying to survive the day. Right.
And if you applied that to sport, it would be like having a gridiron field where, nearly 9 out of 10 players don't really know where we're aiming for and why we're down here doing what we're doing. That would be a crazy sporting game.
It would be a crazy sporting game. Pick an NFL team, football. I don't know if you follow football at all, but pick a team. And if 9 out of 10 is 11 players on the field at a time, if 10 out of those 11 players don't know that we're trying to win the game, first of all, and hopefully we're trying to win a Super Bowl. If not, if all 11 out of 11 on the field at any given time don't understand that we're trying to win a Super Bowl here, your chances of actually winning that Super Bowl are probably nil. Less than zero. If you can have that.
And so, Kelvin, how can leaders go about getting that cascade? I guess the first step, like you said, is to have your moonshot and to know what it's about and make it clear and have that meaning behind it. But what have you seen effective with that actually then getting it down to middle management and frontline teams, depending on your structure of your company?
All right. So here's the science behind that, right? The moonshot, the reason the moonshot was so powerfully effective was because there's only one moon, right? That's orbiting Earth, that at least that we know about, right? One natural moon anyway. And that singularity of focus is what allowed for that degree of concentration, that degree of acceleration and speed, right? Focus brings speed. So the hack inside of the Fit book is this concept of agile strategy execution. And the hack within agile strategy execution, now we're getting to the 20% of the 20% that produces the 80%, right? So is one goal at a time. And in Agile, it's almost described as a sprint.
Mm.
So when your leader has one goal, it's much easier for you to know how to prioritize as well. When your leader has 3, 5, 10 goals, how do you prioritize from day to day, right? If I just worked an entire business day and there's, 10 hour, 9 hours in my day, and in the 8.5 hours, I'm exhausted. I've worked hard. I've got everything done on my checklist, and then I got 30 minutes left, and my boss has 10 goals and I have 10 goals. Where am I going to put that 30 minutes? I got to decide. I'm already tired. Now I got to decide. I got to make a big decision, right? And I got to make that same decision every single day. But if my boss has one goal and I have one goal, there's no decision to make. My only decision is, all right, what's my next step? Let me do that with my 30 minutes left. And let me see if I can move the ball forward slightly, right?
Yeah.
That degree of focus is what enables speed. It's what enables incredible things to be accomplished.
Yeah. So that's
the sort of the gem. Yeah. I've had a gentleman call that concept goal whip, right? Work in progress, work in progress. So yeah, if somebody's trying to juggle 3, 5, 10 goals, you got a bunch of whip, and it just, achievement per goal just takes way longer.
Yeah.
Right. So if you just have one, you could probably knock it. Instead of having 5 goals an entire year, you could probably knock out 1 goal in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
If you organize it like a sprint.
Yeah.
Right. And this is where, the Agile methodology comes from, right? You set the goal, you iterate your way to it, right? Focus,
that's
iterate,
neat.
track. So,
which I guess, if you come to the bit of iterate and track, then you've been able to set up your organization. So you've got that moonshot, there's meaning to it. You've got that more focus on the critical few goals. I guess you can still watch a dashboard in the background, can't you? But it's like, what's that goal that we're tracking to really push things forward and strategically, alter things here? What does the iterate and track then look like, mate? What does it look like if I'm then iterating towards that and tracking it?
Yeah, so iterate is just having a clear idea of what you're going to try next, right? And everything's a trial. You never know for sure if it's going to be successful, but you give it a shot, right? You shoot your shot. Now it depends on, how frequently you iterate would depend on where you sit in the organization. The data feed of the flow of information back to you that gives you some type of validation of, impact of the iteration is also helpful. So if you're sitting in the C-suite, you may be iterating on a monthly or perhaps quarterly frequency, right? Because you're probably looking at company valuation, you're probably looking at, sales revenue, you're probably looking at financial statements. So, it takes a little more time for the feedback signal to get back. So you should probably be iterating on a slower basis, but you should also be doing bigger things, right? Doing things that take a little more time to implement and do, right? If you're at the middle management level, you're probably iterating at more of a monthly, maybe a bi-weekly basis, right? Again, partly you're constrained by the rate of data feedback coming back to you. So again, you're looking at financial statements. You might be looking at, some data streaming to you from the business process. So it may take a little, 2 to 4 weeks, 2 to 5 weeks to get that cycle, right? Plan, do, check, act, focus, iterate, track cycle. But if you're at the shop floor, or if you're a individual contributor and you're using software systems that's feeding you data on a pretty much live stream, day to day, hour to hour, it's possible you could be iterating on a daily basis and potentially an hourly basis, depending on, what you're trying to do. So I would say as you get closer to the value stream, you could probably see faster iteration and quicker feedback loop tied to those iterations. But to answer your question more briefly, iteration is essentially making a change and observing the result. Make a change, observe the result. Make a change, observe the result. And as long as you're clear about that North Star, as long as you're clear about your goal, where you're trying to get to, then you can quickly measure how much impact each individual change is making to the results.
Yeah, that's awesome. And mate, what do you see track looks like? Like, how do you effectively keep sight of this? What have you seen work well in the companies you've been involved with and you consult to, mate?
This can be a challenging one because I've seen people gravitate to numbers they already track, and that's sometimes good, sometimes not, right? You really want to get to a leading indicator, right? First off. So you want to get to numbers you can impact and that have a strong likelihood of correlation with the outcome or the result you're looking for, right? So if I'm trying to drive sales revenue, then the leading indicator is how many phone calls am I making every day? Like how many people am I talking to every day, right? If I'm talking to nobody, then most likely my sales revenue isn't going to be affected either, right? That's a sales example. Manufacturing has the same thing, right? If I'm trying to drive, manufacturing revenue, then I need to look at how many units per hour I might be producing. All right, that could be a leading indicator. You can set that up in many different ways, but people tend to want to jump to things they're already tracking. What I usually encourage is if you don't have a measure that you need, your first sprint is to get that measure in place. So use your first, like if I need to be tracking quality defects, first pass good on quality, and I'm not currently tracking that, I don't want to necessarily say, well, let me find something else to work on because I'm not tracking that. I would say my first sprint, my first 2 weeks is to get a reliable, accurate measure of quality, first pass good in place.
Yeah.
That's my first sprint. My second sprint then becomes, all right, now that I have a measure in place, now I know that I'm only at 75%. Now my second sprint is to get that number to 85% or, wherever it needs to be. So,
yeah. And how important do you find making those measures transparent in the workplace so that you can see them at any time? How important is that you see with the companies you work with?
Generally speaking, textbook answer is, transparency is a good thing, right? And I believe it is. I believe it allows everyone to speak and operate from a basis of truth instead of other things. We don't need to go into detail on what those other things are, but so having that basis of truth, of common understanding, enables improvement, because you can't improve if you can't agree on reality, right? And that's the quicksand that houses are often built on, is just having no basis of understanding and reality. So having that transparent data is a huge step toward a single source of truth that everyone can operate from.
Yeah, I'm guessing if you're playing NFL down on the field and there's no scoreboard that you can actually see how you're tracking, it could be a bit of a problem.
Exactly, right? You got players arguing over how many points you got, right? Can't have that. That's not even a game at that point.
It's going to cause some issues.
Yeah, you got what it will cause, and this is a big thing, is infighting. And infighting destroys organizations.
Yeah.
I guess there's a certain degree of healthy conflict, but if you can't agree that how many units you made from day to day, or what your process is capable of, you can't make improvements, right? I once had I used to put out a report, a weekly performance report, and one week I put out a report that said we had a 56% efficiency on one of our main production lines last week. And the maintenance manager speaks up and says, I don't believe that number. I think we were at, much higher, right? What do I do in that situation? I'm trying to get resources pooled so we can work on this and drive improvement against this, because, we got a big opportunity here. And maintenance manager being defensive, right? He's in charge of PMs. He's in charge of, OEE and efficiency to some extent, is being defensive. And he doesn't have any proof or evidence that it's higher. He's just making a point, making a statement, because that kind of statement is going to stifle any progress, right? He's trying to kill the initiative to drive improvement, really, because he's trying to make the case that it's already good, right? So in that moment, I was a younger engineer. I just fired back and said, all right, look, the burden of proof is on you. If you think it's higher, you need to prove it. But until then, we're about to get to work. And we're kicking off a Kaizen on that line. So let's go, right? I'm gonna need 2 mechanics from you too, by the way. So, and it took me some time as a professional to get to a point where I'm like gonna fire back like that. But as a young professional, it would have been probably a different case of well, yeah, maybe we can do some more studies and get more data and find out if this is, no, we're not doing that. I guess at a certain point in my career, I just like, hey, we need to improve everything. So why wait? Let's start here.
Yeah, but like you said, a big part of it is that focus in your book, that in fit, that focus on what do we need to improve. So that's awesome. I'm sure with efficiencies there, mate, that is a focus point. Hey, Kelvin, what would be your enterprise excellence 2-minute tip to an organization? If you're sitting there at the CEO going up to the 30th level of an elevator, what would you say to him or her?
I think the mindset that needs to be developed in order to drive true operational excellence really starts from the top. And if that mindset isn't there, then there's nobody you can hire to get to transform an organization, right? I see a lot of companies sort of bringing in, lean leaders and outsiders to drive projects and do various, try to push the culture a little bit, but one bad action from the top can undermine the whole thing. Years and years of work from the middle and bottom can be undermined in one bad action from the top. So the mindset at the top needs to be there first. And the other question is like, what are you bringing that help in for, right? Are you bringing in because they have a knowledge set or skill set or a certain experience? Or you bringing in because you've been unable to influence change and you expect them to do it, right? If you're the boss, if you're writing everybody's checks and you can't influence change, what makes you think that this guy is going to come in who is not writing anybody's check is going to come in and influence such a change, right? So the mindset at the top is really the alpha and omega, and
yeah, Kelvin, if I had a dollar for every time, if I had a dollar for every time, that was, it's huge, isn't it? It's paramount.
It's huge. And if you're bringing this person in because they have a certificate, I would say it'd be easier for you, the guy writing the checks, to just go get the certificate and go, right? You go get certified and go, and lead from your authority. So
yeah, I love it, mate.
It's been on my mind lately, but
yeah. I call it the leadership shadow, mate. I call it the leadership shadow. I think it's extremely powerful.
It
mate,
is.
I really appreciate your time and knowledge, Kelvin, mate. It's been a great conversation on a very important topic. And, mate, how can people get hold of the Fit book or reach out and get in touch with you, mate? Because I understand you do help organizations directly also.
I do. Easiest way to get a hold of me is probably LinkedIn. My company website is Impruver.com. It's another great way to get a hold of me. We just launched Impruver University, which has a series of courses, including Agile Strategy Execution, Toyota Kata. We got value stream mapping. We got a whole slew of courses in the pipeline. And in fact, you could even go there and get, white belt, yellow belt, green belt certification on Lean Six Sigma. So what's cool about this is that you can essentially wash your entire organization through these certification programs and teach them a good foundation of what they need to know so that they can help accelerate the continuous improvement journey within your organization. So between that and coupled with the software, Impruver software, you've got everything you need to take it and go as far and as fast as you want. And the only thing left is for you to decide what's your moonshot.
Yeah, that's neat, mate. That's neat. And I guess too, the great thing with what you're doing there is you're taking away that whole complexity of education, because education's just a start, isn't it? It's then like that.
It's just a start.
The whole fit piece and then the leadership shadow or that leadership piece. That's awesome, mate.
That's it.
Kelvin, thank you so much for your time and knowledge, mate. Thanks for helping us create a better future. Really appreciate it, mate.
Yeah, Brad, my pleasure, man. I appreciate you having me on. This was great.
Cheers, Kelvin. Bye for now, mate.
Likewise.
What a great episode. Remember, you can go to the Enterprise Excellence Podcast website to downloads and get hold of our process map and how to create a meaningful vision and cascade that through your teams. There were two key takeaways for me from this episode. The first one was focus. I really love the concept Kelvin spoke about of having that one or two clear goals of change, of improvement that we're chasing, and executing that for a period of time to get there to that aspiration, and then moving on to another goal. Really comes into that focus piece. I love that aspect. Kelvin links that back to that moonshot with JFK and the key goal of putting a person on the moon, which is quite amazing. The second key takeaway for me was that iterative approach that we're talking about, taking that time-based iterative sprint approach to executing improvement, putting out change or improvement, and then checking how it went, and then planning again and going forward. Very much the backbone of that agile system that we have had so many great guests on with also. It's a great concept, has helped and can help so many organizations. Thanks again for your time and knowledge, Kelvin. Thanks for helping us create a better future. Bye for now.